Escomatic coil-fed automatic lathe, model D2 and D4. Setup operator training system. Lesson number 4, coil restocking. As you operate your model D2 or D4 Escomatic, it will become necessary to remove the stock remnant from the machine and load new stock into the machine. Before the end of the coil stock begins to enter the stock straightener, it is time to restock the machine. The end of the stock must not be allowed to enter the stock straightener. If the end enters the straightener, the back and forth travel of the straightener slide will bend and bind the stock. This may cause damage to the stock straightener and the tools. To stop the machine, first disengage the camshaft start-stop lever. Allow the machine to cycle to its neutral position. Stop the main motor and the stock straightener motors by pushing both red stop buttons. Allow both to coast to a stop. Moving the stock clamp lever to the right and back will release the pressure of the feed rolls on the stock. Before raising the countercollet carrier plate on the Model D2, make sure that the tool holders are in their horizontal position and the stock is pulled back out of the countercollet. Then raise the countercollet carrier plate up. Before raising the drill turret on the Model D4, make sure the drills and countercollet are in their return position and the drills have stopped rotating. Raise the drill turret up. Remove the metal guard located in front of the tool head. Push the stock slightly forward out of the tool head. Clamp the stock in the stock feed rolls. Cut off the end of the stock with a set of wire cutters. File any burrs from the end of the stock. Unclamp the stock. Now grip the stock behind the stock straightener and pull the stock back out of the tool head. Open the cover of the stock straightener and continue to pull the stock remnant out of the rear of the machine. There are a few basic adjustments that can be made to the stock derailleur before you load stock onto the derailleur. These are the coil holders located on the top of the stock derailleur. The purpose of the coil holders is to support the center of the coil stock. Each coil holder is mounted on an extension arm. The extension arms are moved in or out to fit the size of the coil of stock used. This is the derailleur tension adjustment located in the center of the stock derailleur. The purpose of this nut and spring combination is to adjust the tension on the derailleur. Turning the adjusting nut counterclockwise will decrease the tension on the derailleur as it rotates. Turning the adjusting nut clockwise will increase the tension. The tension on the derailleur is adjusted so that the uncoiling pressure of the coil stock will not make the derailleur spin wildly as the coil stock is used up. The height of the derailleur table can be adjusted up or down by loosening this set screw. Adjust the height of the table to be slightly lower than the hole in the wire cleaner. Retighten the set screw. Before a coil of stock can be loaded onto the derailleur, it will be necessary to perform these tasks. First, you should inspect the coil of stock for any damage or severe kinking. This damaged stock may cause stock breakage as it goes through the stock straightener. Next, you should check the dimensions of the stock with a micrometer. Information on the type of stock and stock size can be found on your layout sheet. Coil stock size on this layout sheet is 125 thousandths brass stock. Coil stock comes in one of two ways. The stock will spool off the top of the coil in either a clockwise direction or a counterclockwise direction. A coil of stock only uncoils easily from the top of the coil. Before mounting the coil onto the derailleur, you must find the right end for proper uncoiling. You may need to cut all or some of the bindings. Try uncoiling one end of the coil. The end that uncoils smoothly with no weight from the rest of the coils is the top of the coil. Each individual coil will rest on the next wrap of the coil. Before placing the coil of stock on the derailleur, these coil holders must be loosened and moved. Loosen the thumb screws on the bottom of the derailleur. Now you can turn the holder points towards the center and slide the holders toward the center of the derailleur. Now place the coil of stock on the derailleur. Make sure that you place the coil on the derailleur with the top of the coil up. Turn the coil holders until the tips point to the outside of the derailleur. Slide the holders out until they rest against the center of the coil. Tighten the thumb screw on the bottom of the derailleur to secure the holders. Cut any bindings that still hold the coil. Locate the bottom end of the coil. Bend it around one of the extension arm pieces or coil holders on the stock derailleur supporting the coil. If this end is not secured, it will spring out once most of the coil is used up. If secure, the end will not be able to enter the stock straightener and cause damage. Check to see in which direction the top of the coil is unspooling. If the top of the coil is unspooling in the counterclockwise direction, the stock derailleur will have to be moved to the front of the machine. If the coil unspools in the clockwise direction, the derailleur must be moved to the back of the machine. This is the stock derailleur lock lever. Its purpose is to lock the stock derailleur in position. To move the derailleur into position, loosen the derailleur lock lever by moving it counterclockwise. Now the stock derailleur can be swung on this hinge into position. Retighten the lock lever. On some stock derailleurs, there may be a swivel joint used to further position the stock derailleur. By loosening this set screw, the derailleur can be adjusted closer to or further away from the machine as needed. The set screw can then be retightened. The loose top end of the coil must now be partially straightened. This will help in threading the stock through the straightener. Uncoil about one wrap from the coil. Bend the end of the coil into a hook shape so that you can hold the stock easily without it slipping from your hand. Grasp the hooked end of the stock with one hand. With the rag in the other hand, grasp the stock just below the hooked end. Pull the stock through the hand holding the rag at a slight angle. You may have to repeat pulling the stock through a couple of times to get the stock straight. Cut the hooked end of the stock off with a wire cutter. Check that the end of the stock has no burrs. If the stock has burrs, file the end to a smooth point. Open the wire cleaner and thread the stock through the rear of the straightener. Insert the stock through each stationary jaw and the movable jaw in the rotor. The stock should extend to the feed rollers. Located below the stock straightener on the operator's side of the machine is the manual stock straightener lever. The purpose of the manual stock straightener lever is to move the overbend jaw in the stock straightener independent of the overbend straightener jaw cam. Raising the lever up will cause the stock to be overbent in the stock straightener. The manual lever should only be raised the same distance the overbend cam would raise the lever. If the lever is forced too high, the stock will be overbent too far. This will cause heat and the stock diameter will increase. This may cause the stock to bind in the stock guide bushing in the tool head. Make sure that everything is clear from around the straightener area and rotor. Switch the straightener motor on. Raise the manual straightener lever up with your left hand. At the same time, pull the stock back out of the rear of the straightener with your right hand. Switch the straightener motor off. The front of the stock is now straightened. Remove 6 to 8 inches of stock from the end just straightened with a set of wire cutters. File down the point. Now the stock can be threaded through the wire cleaner, stock straightener, stock clamp jaws, camshaft start-stop lever, feed rolls, stock bushing, and into the work area. The stock must now be straightened to make up for the 6 to 8 inches cut off. Turn the straightener on. Lift the manual lever and pull the stock back about halfway. Drop the manual straightener lever. Stop the straightener motor. Rethread the stock into the tooling area. Move the stock forward until the end is flush with the outside edge of the tools. On the Model D2, you must now lower the counter collet carrier plate. Lock the counter collet carrier plate into position. Move the stock forward into the counter collet. Clamp the stock in the machine and close all the covers on the machine. On the Model D4, replace the metal guard in the front of the tool head. Lower the drill turret and lock it in position. Close the covers on the machine. Start the main motor and check to make sure the head is rotating and that you have coolant flow to the tooling area. Start the stock straightener motor. Then engage the camshaft start-stop lever. This is the chip waste basket located here from both the Model D2 and D4 schematics. The basket should be emptied and cleaned when it becomes full. After cleaning, replace the chip basket and close the door. This completes your training tape on coil restocking. Remember, you must be able to name, locate, and explain the components covered in this lesson. You will also be required to restock the machine. You may watch this tape as many times as you need. When you have finished watching this tape, return to the written material for your next step.